Professor Thomas Seyfried of Boston College said cancer's fuel is glucose and glutamine. How can you starve your body of both of these?
Well, the idea is not to go extreme. The diet I just talked about, phase 1.25 or 1.5, which is nuts and seeds, has fat in it. Remember, low omega-3s, they've also found higher rates of suicide. So we have to have your long-chain omega-3s, DHA and EPA, in this bigger picture. So a phase 1.5, 1.25, 1.5, you have your leafy greens, you have your nuts and seeds, and you can have a little bit of cooked food, also 100% vegan, 80% live food as a minimum. You don't really have to worry about that. The rates of cancer are dramatically lower for people who are vegan. So meat eaters tend to have 2.6 times more, 3.6 times more cancer of the prostate. They have increased rates of cancer somewhere between 2 and 4-fold in many of the areas of cancer of the bowel, for example. So going vegan, keeping it 80% minimum live food, you're naturally going to be protecting yourself. And then I watch the blood sugar, particularly it increases with age. We may have to kind of modify the diet to do that. And you can have yams, sweet potatoes, beans, cooked beans. I'm not recommending much grain. The Chinese Taoist said bigu. This is 450 BC. They got this figured out. Bigo means no grains. If you really need to have grains, you want to do the non-gluten and gliadin grains: millet, buckwheat, quinoa, amaranth, and teff. And rice is kind of in between in that story. So that minimizes it significantly. The other thing is meat eaters have 4 times more osteoporosis. So we want to, vegans have really significantly less vegan women and vegan men have significantly less osteoporosis. But it's still good to do anti-gravity exercises, jumping in the rebounder, things like that. So all those, I'm going to say, being healthy, we stop worrying about this thing or that thing, because the diet and the lifestyle nullifies that tendency.
Do we need iodine as a nutritional supplement? How important is it, and where do you get it?
Iodine is extremely important in a few areas. First of all, pregnant women who are deficient in iodine, their children have a 13-point on the average lower IQ. They did a study in Indonesia where they gave kids iodine, and after 4 months, their IQ went up 8 points. So what am I saying? Obviously, it's affecting brain function. Obviously, it's, let's say, we're looking at brain, but also areas where iodine is very important. I'm not mentioning thyroid yet, okay? Is heart. Heart function is very important. I find it's very important for optimal pancreas function. It's the organ with the highest amount of iodine actually is the skin. We also know iodine is very good to support the immune system. So we have heart, we have pancreas, obviously we have thyroid. We have brain function. So iodine is very good for improving the function of all these areas. Again, not just thyroid, that's the key concept. Iodine is also very good as the best antimicrobial, antiviral there is, and also antifungal. We've known that since the 1850s. So it really protects you on that level. So these are just a little bit of understanding that what we're talking about is like it's incredibly important. I use a particular iodine. I call it Illumidine. That's the name of it, Illumidine. And what that is it's I2 is broken into I minus. Very well absorbed and very potent. And I use iodine that is physically mined, I'm not sure exactly, somewhere in South America. And so it's really, really pure because from the ocean, it's a little bit contaminated. So from Chile. Okay. So I recommend it for everyone on all those levels. And one of the remarkable things, which is still a big deal in the world, is malaria. So around 1917, 18, a person in India was a very famous person, was really having trouble with malaria, and it was about to kill him, and they started giving him iodine, this I minus form, and he healed. Now, I have programs in Africa, and even today, people are literally dying of malaria. Now, it's a little expensive, but to me, the best possible thing we could do for people is increase the availability of iodine. So it also has to do with, as I mentioned, IQ. So in iodine deficient areas, we have lower IQ, significantly lower IQ. So it's good for everybody. They used to put it in the food to a certain extent, and they stopped doing it. And I won't even speculate why they stopped doing it since it's so healthy for people. Research in the early 1900s really showed that young girls with low thyroid difficulty really did much better with iodine. The other research that I think is really important is fibrocystic breast and breast cancer. And in Japan, research has shown that the iodine helps protect you against breast cancer, helps for breast cysts, fibrocystic breast disease, and actually making a difference. So it's actually a treatment as well, particularly for a variety of breast diseases. It's also good for ovarian cysts, things like that. So we have a full range. The ovaries are made much better with proper iodine. So we have to think about it as a total nutrient. Most of the population is really low in iodine. It's less in the soil, less in the food. And so it is a very essential nutrient. Now there's another level, which is called mitochondria. Mitochondria are the energy factories of the cell. And with all the toxins in the world, all the free radicals that are going on, many people are having serious mitochondrial destruction. Now let's see what do I mean? Roughly speaking, when I look at the literature, the average neuron needs about 5,000 mitochondria. Heart needs 3,500 mitochondria, heart cells. Okay, that's interesting. So what I find is that some people come and they're very, very exhausted. They're having chronic fatigue and so forth. And as I check it out, they're very low in mitochondria. So iodine helps stimulate the production of mitochondria. And it's one of three things I use. I also use CoQ10PQQ and D-ribose to build up the mitochondria, and it really does make a difference. So I'm seeing a variety of people like fatigued and weak, and I think from all the free radical type exposure that's going on in our society, the chemtrails, just on and on. And that's iodine is one of the main stimulators of mitochondrial growth, which is really, really important. One other thing that iodine does is it helps with apoptosis, which is the killing of destroying of dead and dying cells and also cancer cells. So it helps our body to have the ability to weed out these things, and destroy them, particularly cancer cells. So it's a general preventative against cancer. So we're talking that, we're talking immune system, we're talking heart, brain, that's pretty important, and pancreas, and thyroid, and skin, and as an antiparasitic. So I recommend people take iodine, the I-. We use luminine as something every day to maintain and build up. It also forces out fluoride out of the pineal gland. Why is that important? Because we're one of the few countries still putting fluoride in the water, and it accumulates in the pineal gland and kind of blocks that function. So what iodine will do, the luminine in specific, it's going to force the fluoride out of the pineal and replace it with iodine. And it forces the bromide out of the system and also forces out lead, mercury, and cadmium. So I always tell people start slowly with this because, you could have a major detox. So those are kind of the range of it. So at this time in our world, in our society, it's really important to take an I- supplementation. And that will vary. People say, oh, it's dangerous, blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't seem to be. There's a study of over 4,000 people over 4 years taking a certain amount, and they were fine. They didn't have a problem. But that study also showed about 95% of the American population is deficient in iodine. Are people allergic to it? Mostly people, when they talk about iodine allergic, it's a protein-bound iodine that you usually see when you're doing certain medical tests. They use protein-bound iodine. This is not the same thing as freestanding iodine. So, yes, it's essential. It's really important to take. I'm going to be doing a little bit of study to see safety. I take a fair amount of it, and I'm going to really check a few things on myself to see what levels that is and say, because I've been doing it for years.